Daniel Abt got he basically fielded an illegible driver, is probably the correct term. So he basically didn't race in the Race at Home Challenge. He basically got a sim racer in, I think it's Lorenzi Hoerzing. I probably pronounced that
Lorenz
incredibly.
Hoerzing, yeah.
I knew I'd pronounced that incredibly wrong, but I suppose you need to make a rule sometimes. The way you pronounce the name is probably the correct way to pronounce a name. But so he got the sim race obviously then to race instead of him, and it raised suspicion straight away. Like, I was on Stoffel Van Dorn's stream because he's really good at showing just basically what's going on in terms of lap times, especially for the practice, so we can keep everyone on Twitter sort of aware of who's quick and who's not quick, for example. And as soon as Daniel Abt, Jack, set that qualifying time, you must have been delighted because you've picked him for a great weekend. But Stoffel Van Dorn was like, I need to phone out. That no way is that him.
Yeah, no. When he set that lap time at the start of qualifying, I thought, oh, okay, this might be good because I'm pretty sure Nichols was saying like, oh, a 1:09.3 is a banging time. So, okay, yeah, it's good. It's going to happen. I was readying the trophy and everything. I mean, yeah, I was ready to like come on here on today and just brag to all of you at how Daniel Abt was magnificent this weekend, and yeah, no, he started he didn't, but the thing. Okay, so the car that was Daniel Abt started second and went on to finish third, and yeah, no, what I initially understood of it was I thought that someone did the qualifying for him, then he did the race, but no, it was just someone else for the entire thing. But no, it was, yeah, I was in disbelief about it. I'm not sure if it was the pressure of me saying Daniel Abt's going to have a good weekend that he decided to get a sim racer in to do it. But no, it's no, it was very shocking and very surprising on Sunday when this all emerged.
No, it was like, I couldn't believe it. But at the same time, like, I went onto his Twitch stream, so there was a lot of debate, Ed, because, people been putting a picture up of him, Mike hidden his face, and people thinking, that's clearly not him. And I saw that while we were watching. I thought, let me go on Daniel Apt's stream and let's just go on it, because obviously he's doing a Twitch stream as well. And I go on to Daniel Apt's Twitch, and who do I see? Who looks like he's in that seat, microphone in a very similar position, Daniel Abt. So, like, the Sim-racer Lorenz, he wasn't in the car, which makes sense. He wasn't going to go to Apt's house, and I know Germany's lockdown restrictions are sort of, less, but I wouldn't imagine, people coming to people's house. So Abt was there, and he was moving the steering wheel, but so I thought nothing of it. So I thought, well, Abt must be driving. He must be just a Berlin specialist. But what didn't trigger in my brain is that I was just watching Daniel Abt. Why would I be watching Daniel Abt instead of a game capture of the race? That didn't twig in my head when that happened. So thinking back now, for me, when I went on his stream, he's obviously faking it, and that camera could still be him, because the way that it was positioned, even on his stream, it would have covered his face, but it would have just been him faking driving effectively, or he was just driving a different race.
Yeah, he went to so much subterfuge to try and fool everyone. And I tried to look for that stream that you mentioned of just him driving, and he's deleted it. And so that seems to be a tacit admission, or this sort of, or he wants to delete the evidence basically so no one can see it. But yeah, you know what? The really sad thing is, it's clear that by getting the sim racer in, that he's sort of admitting, look, I'm crap at sim racing, and it's just better if I just get someone who actually knows what they're doing. And which in of itself, if he had just come up and been up front and said, look, I don't want to race and Race at Home Challenge anymore, it's really boring, basically forcing me to do it, I'd rather Lorenz race because he's a friend of mine, he's really, because they are good friends, that's why he agreed to do this crazy scheme for him. If they had just been up front and it was clear that it was Lorenz driving and not Daniel Abt, then I don't think there would be a problem or any kind of story at all. But they were dishonest and they lied about it, and that's why Daniel Abt has ended up having to pay 10,000 euros to charity. He got disqualified from the race and all the previous races as well. Lorenz Hoerzing has been disqualified too and banned from the Sim-racer Challenge race. So in a way, Lorenz actually got a raw deal, a worse deal out, because 10,000 euros, that's sort of nothing to Daniel Abt. That's a drop in the ocean, I imagine. Even though, you know, obviously all the drivers are taking pay cuts at the moment, and we're in a time where not a lot of them have income, so it might hurt more than usual. But still, I don't think it's going to really dent Daniel Abt's wallet that much. And it'd be interesting to see whether he actually comes back now, because is he contracted to by his sponsors, or is he going to sit out and there's just going to be an empty spot on the grid because they can't trust him anymore?
You make a really good point in terms of sponsors, and I'm going to get to that very soon. But honestly, when I saw it, you know, a lot of people on Twitter and Facebook and so forth, you know, quite rightly so, you know, calling him basically like a stooge, like he basically ruined it. And honestly, I was like, in my head, I was like, what a legend. I can't believe that you've actually done this. Like, you've actually made a mockery of this series, of this championship. And I saw the comedy element in it. Like, I can see how this can be quite funny. But the problem is, like, he put himself at risk, even with the, you know, potential comedy element, and that is kind of like a Daniel Abt thing to do. You know, the risk of losing sponsors, the risk of losing his driver, Audi, was all put on the line from this, because, you know, I'm going to Bubba Wallace in NASCAR, basically rage quit in a NASCAR sim race. Just, it didn't go his way, he rage quit. He lost his sponsors from that. So, Daniel Abt easily could have lost his race seat from Audi from doing this. He could have lost sponsors. You know, it could have been a really big deal.
Yeah, definitely. I think over the last few months we've seen some quite controversial moments in sim racing. We had Pagenaud Norris a few weeks ago. Obviously, this has happened. One of the NASCAR drivers, I've forgotten his name, but he dropped the N bomb
Carl
on
Larson.
a stream or something.
Mm.
So yeah, no, I think the thing is, one thing I think is clear is that these drivers they don't really care about the sim racing. They're just using it to like pass the time until we get back to normal soon. But yeah, and so yeah, if they're not going to if they're not going to take it seriously, then they won't take it seriously.
Is Abt's career in Formula E over now? You know, he was on the fence. He was on the fence with Audi. And now he's come out, he's cheated. It's not a good look for Audi. And I said, you know, the consequences for, you know, what he's done, we're only 2 days on, it could still be huge. You know, his consequences, and whether or not he does lose sponsors or he does eventually lose his drive with Audi. This could be a good reason for Audi not to re-sign him, because they're effectively going to endorse a cheater in effect. And that's what I mean. Yes, I can see the comedy element of it. I really can. And to be fair, as I said, when I saw it, I went, what a legend, I can't believe you've done that. But at the same time, I'm like, I can't believe the risk that you've taken with your Formula E career by doing that. Because, you know, as I said earlier, we saw it with people, you know, losing sponsors, with rage quitting and so forth. And, you know, he's on the fence about keeping his seat at Audi. We're talking about him as one of the drivers who went into the season most vulnerable for losing his seat. And now he's given Audi a good reason to let him go.
Yeah, I take that point, but the thing I don't think his Formula E career is over. He's still a decent driver, and the fact that he did this in a sim race, I mean, I don't think it will affect it as much as like what we've seen with things like Carl Larson in NASCAR. I don't think it's going to be to like that extent or anything like that. I think most people will kind of see it in a few months' time as like something funny that happened. I think this is all blown up now, and then probably in about 2 weeks' time we won't even really care about it that much. But yeah, no, I think he can still stay in Formula E. I think it's still going to be fine. And even if he does lose that seat to Audi, I reckon that a lot of teams will look at him as like a possibility to fill one of their seats instead. What else was I going? Oh yeah, I was going to compare it to a couple years ago. There was an incident in Moto2 involving Romano Fenati, where he went alongside. I think he was passing Stefano Manzi in Misano, and he pulled his Manzi's brake lever whilst going past him, and he got a ban for life, which was then overturned. About 8 months later, he returned to Moto3. I think he had one win last season, and he's now racing for Max Biaggi's team. So I don't think. I think that is severely worse than what Daniel Abt's done. So I think I don't think it's over, and I reckon he will still be in Formula E in one shape or form for the foreseeable future.
But has what Abt done, Ed? Has it highlighted just how bad I would say that this race at home challenge has been? Because if you're losing interest in the drivers and you've got this race royale format, which, let's face it, hasn't really worked, and I suppose if maybe drivers are thinking, what's the point in me practicing for me going out? Maybe that's what Abt thought. Maybe he thought, what's the point of me putting all this effort in to race 2 laps? And at least if there was no race royale format, he would have raced the whole thing, and maybe that would motivate him. So if there was an error, like, he can still try and race back through and try and get a decent result out of it. But knowing that he could be out after the end of lap 2, if you know you're going to be in that elimination zone at some point during that race after the first 3 or 4 laps, maybe you're thinking, what is the point of me even turning up each week? I might as well just throw a ringer in for a laugh.
Yeah, I don't think that's really an excuse, but I can see why he might be tempted to feel that way, and that might have influenced his decision. 2 things really come to mind. One is that the organisers of Race at Home Challenge really need to work on their sort of authentication to check that who's actually in there, because it seemed like obvious after qualifying, and then they had the whole Sim-racers race to really sort the situation out and nip it in the bud, and then they just decided not to do anything until after the actual F1 drivers race. So I think they could maybe have reacted a bit quicker, but I guess maybe there wasn't enough suspicion. Maybe people weren't raising their suspicions to them early enough until after the race. It depends, because we only really heard Van Dorn and Vern on stream complaining about it after the race. So I'm sure they were mentioning it on stream a bit earlier. But second thing is, I have a wild conspiracy theory about this, that I feel like maybe Daniel Abt has done this deliberately, not really thinking that he would actually get away with it. Because do you remember in Hong Kong when he was basically blagging after the race? He was bragging about how his stream had more views than the actual Formula E stream on YouTube, and so I almost wonder if he's done this deliberately, knowing he will get caught, knowing it will make a sort of sensationalist story at a time when there's not much else going on, and that. I've seen 30 or 40 articles written by different news outlets online all about this, basically regurgitating the same thing. And I wonder if he's done that just to create a little bit of a story, and that he didn't think maybe that he would actually get any kind of punishment for it. And he because he did seem a bit surprised at having to pay, in his statement at least, having to pay the 10,000 euros.
But the thing is, which is hilarious, and someone actually mentioned this to me on Facebook, actually said, I bet Formula E put him up to it. And I was like, imagine that. I don't think that's true in the slightest.
No, I don't think that's the conspiracy theory too far for me. Yeah.
But I don't think that's true. But at the same time, you're right. There's publications who haven't written one article about the Race at Home Challenge, wrote an article about the Race at Home Challenge on Sunday. And as I said at the beginning of the show, the publicity that it got was incredible. So, whether or not someone put him up to do it, Jack, I don't know. But I doubt it. But at the same time, as I said, it just highlights that. And going back to your earlier point, Ed, where, the FE had no idea that the Abt had done that. There was no way to check it. So, in a sense, anyone could have done it. If anyone could have done it at that point. So, let's go back to race 1. He could have had anyone could have had someone racing fake for them. And no one would have known, because if it was race 1, no one knows how good you are. Therefore, if you put someone as a sim racer in race 1, you're winning races. No one's questioning it. You just carry on.
Yeah, no, I think with the publicity that they have got from this, I think they've got way more publicity than they have got over the past 5 weeks. But the thing is, I you have to look at this, and then also think back to September 2014 when the Formula E Championship first started up. They had the first race in Beijing, and the thing is, most people after that race don't talk about the race; they talk about that Heidfeld-Prost incident, and that's what blew Formula E wide open into like well, not mainstream media, but mainstream media. But yeah, Formula E seems to have a knack of having a controversial thing and then it blowing up. But yeah,